Hmm. Hello, everybody. We will get started here in just a couple minutes. So if you're joining later, watching on YouTube, maybe skip a couple minutes forward, you know? But we will probably get going somewhere around 12:05, 4 minutes or so. Welcome in. All right. Thank you guys for joining. Like I said, if you got questions, feel free to put them in chat, QA, something like that. If not, we can just do some broad learning here. Um, Feel free. We'll get started here in about 2 minutes or so, something like that.
All right. Welcome, everybody. If you have any questions, feel free to type them in the chat or the QA, and I'll be more than happy to demonstrate how to do those specific things. Any comments, questions, criticisms? All right, we'll leave the. Is there any pre-subs that we have? Let me check if there's any. Okay. All right, I'm seeing no pre-subs. Got word. There isn't any. So if there's no pre-submitted questions, I'll leave the call on for about 10 more minutes. And if no one has a question, no one else joins, then we'll just wrap up early for today.
I'll do a quick little demo to fill some space here. All right. Um, cool. This is Robert, by the way, everybody. Hello. Do a quick little demo of something, just to, get some learning in. I started talking about it yesterday for the folks that were here yesterday. just be aware that we have this app store. It was a QR code that we talk about every single time. If you want more information on this, if you just Google Decision Solutions Marketplace, you're going to get lots of options for that. But we have these what we call accelerators. So again, these are good kind of pre-build outs that you can customize to fit your business use case. So, reduce friction to deployment or gain additional kind of tenets of deployment, how you are using decisions in your organization. I've been working with this playbook activity manager last 24, 48 hours, something like that. And it's a cool way to allocate tasks, create easy assignments, and to create linear processes where people can add comments and basically create a case entity around a singular data point. We call them playbooks. You can have teams that have various playbooks underneath them. So we'll take a look at some of that right now. Kind of a build out of the activity manager. So when you install this, it'll just show up as a project in your decisions instance. So it'll have a couple default projects in there. I've kind of been, like I said, working on this for like 24 hours, so I've got this built out slightly differently. Um, but it's really built around this singular dashboard. You can create more dashboards. You can do a lot more. And the singular dashboard actually has lots of dashboards kind of as children underneath it, which is nice. So I can create a playbook team, and I'm just going to call this like lunch and learn. And again, when you, by default, you have a couple in there you can delete. It's really easy to delete it. So again, you have teams. Like I made a fake one for like an automotive organization for a test drive process. But we can create a quick one real fast, and I'll kind of just walk through it. And like I said, or less than 10 minutes, or ideally there. We'll call this the decisions organization process. I'm going to make myself the owner of this so that I get notifications, and you can turn all this off. But so that I get notifications when things happen, or as well as it just kind of shows up on some reporting options and dashboards. I can enter this playbook. So again, if I kind of bounce back one, I have multiple playbooks now. Decisions, automotive, and organizational process. So I can go in there. Um, and in this playbook, right, I've got nothing live, no activities, no playbooks. I do have a team, but I got nothing in there. So I can add a playbook to the team. There's other options up here that you can kind of peruse through, but I can add a playbook to the team, and I'm just going to call this, because it's a decisions organization, the lunch and learn playbook. So this playbook now has something that I can deploy. I can launch it. There's nothing in it, so there's nothing to launch. But now that I have an actual playbook, I'm given the option to launch it. You can copy it, or you can add an activity to the playbook. So the real strength of this, in my opinion, the real strength of this accelerator. Oh, and we have people joining. So if you have a question, feel free to put in the chat or QA. If you're just joining, please feel free. I'm just kind of talking about a built-in accelerator into our decision solutions marketplace. But I can add an activity to the playbook, and it will give you the option to add a sequence number, an activity name, responsible groups, assignment types, state after completion type. So what all this means is, I'm going to make this kind of quick. Let's say the first thing that needs to be done is post reminder to registered attendees or something like that. So we say, hey, we have a lunch and learn coming up. When you add groups, right? I have these groups that I've made for my other one, my automotive kind of demo. But you can make a group saying, hey, this is for marketing, and someone on marketing can kind of pull this from a queue of work. And let's just go ahead and do that really quick, man, because I got time until a question drops. So I'll make a security, I'll make a group. I'm gonna call this marketing, create a group. This group's called marketing. It might have users in it. It might not. For now, it doesn't. We'll also call this trainers group. And we'll maybe make one more group just for fun, something associated with lunch and learn. We'll call it AV team, audio visual, or AV/IT, even though that is me or that is us, but just for, some grouping action. Cool. Back to my views. I can go into my organization, into my lunch and learn. I can add an activity to playbook. Boom. Activity name. Um, Notify registered users of webinar. Who's the responsible group? marketing. I see the chat's going off, so I'll probably bounce over there in a second. I'm just going to clear my thought here for about 20 seconds. Is there a way to add a validation radio box? Yeah, let's look at that 2 seconds just because I want to get to a logical stopping point here. I'll add one more exercise. Big comments required. Here's the real strength for those of you that are just watching and you're invested in this process. It allows you to make these really simple forms that go to your user. So I could say notify registered of them. You can say, we can make this a checklist and make the options users notified, response received. I don't know. We're just kind of doing this to kind of clear it. Assignment type. This will show up as a column header or a column field on your reporting. So for now, I'm just going to call this um, red notification notifications. Again, we'll get to your question here in just 20 seconds here. Just want to get to a logical stopping point because I got halfway through this 2 days in a row. Stay after completion, ready for webinar, something like that. So here's the real strength. I'll add one more quick activity instructions. Please fill this out. Got it. Add another activity. Let's call this test just for fun. We'll make this done by trainers. I can change all this later. Run webinar. I can make this a file upload the video when I'm done kind of thing. Stay after completion, something easy. Webinar complete. Please fill us out. I'm just going to launch the playbook just so we can say we did it. And now when I launch this playbook, we can run this test A for today's date 9/5/2024 LNL. And it's launched. It'll then send those assignments out. You can look at your launched playbooks and get more information about what's happening. And just keep in mind, it stores all this in a case entity. When you set the state after any of these forms are filled, you can use that as a trigger for your configuration folder. So if you set the state to users notified, you can add automation to the tail end of that. And as they fill out those forms, it'll automatically go to the next one in the process. But let's get to some customer questions. So Manal, I have your question here. Thank you so much. We'll kind of talk about it right now. I did unmute you while I read, so if you got any clarity. Hello, is there a way to add a validation dialog box for a radio button? For example, if the radio button list will have a BMW, Toyota, truck, and I want a validation for BMW that says if the user clicks on BMW, then the dialog box opens saying that this car requires premium. If the user selects Toyota, then the dialog box pops up saying this car requires E95 or above. Yeah, there's a bunch of different ways to do it. Ton of them. A ton of them, a ton of them. So let's start building some of this out and we'll see which one applies for you. Um, is there anything else you'd like to add? I do have you unmuted, but if you want, I can just kind of build.
Hey Robert, I have that, or I had another scenario where, for example, I have another radio button, right? For example, it says, are you choosing a car or truck? If they choose car, then only the BMW and Mercedes will be enabled, and then the other one gets disabled. For example, truck. But if you can show me this way, this would be great too.
Yeah, I can almost certainly show you in both. And
Thank you so much.
there's a number of ways to do any of this stuff. So I'm just going to start with a flow just because I like it in context. Obviously we're messing with a form here, but I'm going to put it in a flow first. We'll call this car. Is it for renting a car or something like that? Car renting flow or something, maybe?
Yes. I
Cool.
just made that up because I have like a long list. I have like 10
Yeah,
items. I didn't want it
yeah,
to travel
I get
along.
it. Yeah,
Thank
cool.
you.
No problem at all, man. All right, form. Pick or create form. We're going to create a form. Once we get this, we're going to create it. Create it. Feeling good. Form. Car validation form. I'll probably start with the first one just because I can refer to the text on my left, and then I'll have you fill me in on what the second ask was, unless they're correlative. Is there a way to validation dialog box for radio buttons? Almost certainly. Radio button list. Let's put that nice and big. I haven't done a ton of this yet, but we will. Button. Done. I'm probably just gonna make it static items. I don't know if that's how you're doing it, but just for simplicity, I don't gotta build a structure. I guess I could build a structure, but
I have
or
a
use.
static too.
Okay, awesome. BMW, Toyota truck. Okay. And then if the user clicks on BMW, then a dialog box opens saying that this car requires premium. If the user selects Toyota, then the dialog box pops up saying this car requires E95 or above. Yeah, no problem. So what I would probably say is again, you have 100 options. The most linear for me and the would be setting up an active form flow. You're gonna have a handful of options within that active form flow on how you want to do it. Um, but I'll kind of build out what I'm thinking is the simplest. So with an active form flow, you're going to say, what do you want the trigger to be to run this form flow? So for me, I'm just going to say, anytime the selection box has changed, let's just run this flow. We'll call this validation messages, something like that. All right. So you're going to have a handful of options on this. So when it comes to dialogue, you want it to be a dialogue box or a validation message. So a validation message is going to be kind of like you hover over the field and it will kind of show you a message. Like, I guess I can show you both really quick. Um, I'll just put a validation on there and you can see what the difference is. So I'll just make a really quick one that's just, we don't need too much right now. So with the form control, I'm going to say, hey, I want that on the form data, the radio button list, and then the validation issues. I'm just gonna make this a constant just for, I'll go back and change it. You have fatal, you have, and a warning. I'll just do a warning for now saying, hey, this, and I know this is not going to be specific to the field. I'll show you how to do that later. I just want to make sure that this is kind of what you want. I mean, you could do a show pop-up as well in here, potentially, but would it be okay for your use case? Ignore if you did something like this, where you change it. You see there's a message, hey, this must be E95, or do you want it to be like a pop-up in the middle of the screen?
That would be great because it's like I'm trying to make it it's the people work on the field, so they like to see things big if it's
Yeah.
possible.
No, yeah, it's always possible. No, well, it's not true. It's not always possible, but this particular ask is possible. All right. I also don't like how big this is, so I'm gonna just adjust this a tiny bit because I just don't like it. That. Wow. Just for fun. All right, back to active form flows. Um, all right. So what I would recommend in that use case is something along these lines. If you have a ton of options, you're going to um you have a number, just an absolute a ton of number of ways to build it out that are slightly more scalable. You could do a truth table that outputs values that would then populate a show pop-up dynamically. Um, so that whatever comes out of the truth table, and you're not going to have a ton of pop-up steps, and you won't have to do so much that way. I'll kind of show you like the most deconstructed version, and then we can overbuild it if you want. To me, the most deconstructed version is going to be something along the lines of this. Like you can go a string equals, um, no, sorry, string match, I think is actually what I want. String match. Yeah, string match. And with what string do I want to match? You're going to say, okay, from this, I can go form data, radio button list, selected item. So I'm saying what was selected on my form, and then all my possible matches, right? Toyota, what were the other ones? BMW, truck, truck, Toyota, BMW, truck, something like that. And notice how it gives me all these paths. And on these paths, like again, this is the most deconstructed version. And we can build something out a little more intense, but just to kind of, again, test to see if this is the kind of notification you want. We'll add a couple of these just for fun. And again, you can set up some kind of system constants and stuff to make this a little linear too. But string match, show a pop-up saying, hey, subject, say on the Toyota path, we're going to make this subject for Toyota vehicles, please drive safely. Something like that. Same thing here. If it's on the truck or BMW path, constant for BMW vehicles, constant, please, or this car requires E95 or above. And I'm also going to change these to a center pop-up so it's a little more clean and obvious. Like you said, you want that to be obvious. The apologies, I'm kind of coughing. Let me get some water. The side pop-up is good for not disrupting their workflow, but it sounds like you want this message to like really kind of disrupt their experience with using the form, or at least said that they can't be like, I didn't see it. You want them to be able to see it. And for the truck one, we're just going to say, we're going to make this one crazy. For truck, we're going to say, load data. What is my email? And just so we can show you that you can pick this dynamically. So if you wanted to do the show pop-up out of a truth table, run the same process with a truth table instead of doing a bunch of show pop-ups, you could run one truth table and then one pop-up step and dynamically populate it that way. But let's do something just so we're at least pulling some dynamic data here. And we'll get what's a big clunky chunky brick of text here. My browser user agent, one more save. So in this capacity with an active form flow, every time the value is changed, it'll rerun this flow and it'll string match and it'll show a pop-up based on that thing. So ideally, in the world I want to live in, this is going to work well. So if I click BMW, for BMW vehicles, this car requires 95 or above. Toyota, please drive safely. Truck. Oh, I had this on the side. So at least you get to see what both look like. This is a side option for the notification style. If you wanted something else to populate, I mean, there's a number of, really, to be fair, your options are pretty wide here. You could also do a text box here, or let's do a label here. And then you could populate this text dynamically. So we can just call this label. We're going to make this not visible out the gate, so it's hidden from the user when they first load the screen. And if I wanted to, I could run another active form flow, or I could change this and say rather than these, I can show control and a set control value. And when I show the control, what control am I going to show? I'm going to show the form data label. And then I'm going to set the control value of the form data label. Let me put this on a path here. What am I missing here?
Robert, quick question. So I know I was trying to
Yeah.
get the disable too. So when you clicked on it, it showed enabled or disabled. It would be the same way if I'm trying to get it disabled, right?
Can you say it again? What, apologies. What enabled and disabled? You're talking about with the control on the form itself?
So for example, if there was another radio button which had either a car or truck, and if I choose a car, then only the BMW and Toyota will enabled, and then the truck will disable. I would do the same. I could do the same active form flow for that one too, right?
Yeah, I can build some of that up for you. I got time. So you like is it something like a drop down list up here that says car or truck?
It's also a radio button.
Oh, radio button. Okay, no problem. Let's do a little bit. I'm having fun here.
And then I know this may sound bad, but I also have one last question with this validation. So you see how you have a button enabled, like done, it shows up. So for example, on my form, I have if they choose like truck and they choose truck again, then only the submit button shows up. But if they choose anything else that has a dialog box shows up, then it will not have the submit button. How do I explain it better? If anything has a validation, then they cannot go to the next form. If it doesn't have a validation, then they can go to the next form by clicking on the submit button or the next button. You see what I mean?
Yeah,
maybe I'm
if
confusing it.
no, I think that makes sense. I think maybe let me draw it out because I'm big on that. So essentially,
Mano, could you do us a favor? Could you type that out in
Yeah.
a chat question? We'll just want to open up the floor just in case if Alexander or someone else has a question.
Oh, yeah.
If
So,
no one has a question, we'll circle back with you and continue building.
yeah, that is perfect. I'll go ahead and do that. Sorry about that.
Oh, no,
no,
you're fine. We appreciate the questions. Alexander, do you have any questions? If not, we can just continue on building. Mano's question. All right. Well, if you do have a question, just pop it in. We don't mind pausing on this, and we'll answer your question, Alexander. But yeah, continue on.
you. So we kind of change my structure here. So you want if I select a Alexander's got one, yeah. If I'm trying to pull an SQL table into decisions, but it seems like it might be too large. Do you have any ideas? Jared, you got any insight on that one? I'm trying to pull an SQL table into decisions, but it's SQL table, but it seems like it might be too large. Is that a thing?
Could you give more context on that, Alexander? Like, what's giving you that that gives you that's too large?
Hey, sorry about that.
No worries.
Trying to come off mute here. So yeah, we're trying to pull in we're trying to run a SQL statement inside of decisions, and the table that we need to pull in. We need all the data from the table because we're trying to push it to another environment using decisions. And it's kind of getting stalled right now.
How many records are in that table? Do you
Like
know?
2 million records on 140 columns.
2 million,
20,
140
I'm sorry,
columns.
how many? 22 million.
22 million. Oh, okay.
22 million. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Gotcha. So what I would recommend, there's a couple things to recommend. I would definitely use the run flows for lists to kind of batch and queue those things in. Another thing to be aware of is, Robert, could you go into a flow real quick? Like just close and save that and go into a flow. Is that by default, click on the any part of the canvas real quick, and then go to properties, Robert. All the way to the right. Properties is all the way to the right.
22 million.
And can you go to settings? And there is a stop at recursion right there. So basically, because we don't want to keep running a flow and that, people can actually create infinite loops and then it just brings down your system. So by default, flow recursions will stop at 20,000. And so concerning the size of your table, if you're trying to fetch all the data, which is 2 million records of data, and put it somewhere else, you may have to increase this recursion number so it actually captures all the data for that.
Okay, so could you go over that point one more time? I'm sorry.
Right, yeah, so every flow designer, like every flow you create, has a recursion limit, meaning that it will only process 20,000 times. So let's say I'm importing a large Excel file, and that Excel file has 100,000 records in it, and I want all those to be put in a database. I create a default flow, but I leave the recursion number at 20,000. I'm only getting 20,000, basically only 20% of that data. I'm only going to get 20,000 records and not the other 100,000. So I need to increase that number to allow the recursion limit to go, allow it to run higher so I can get all 100,000 records. So if I was just, for example, in my scenario, if I was using 100,000 records that I needed to import, I would change that to be like 150,000 or 200,000 so that when I loop through and iterate through it, I'll get all of that data.
Okay. Now, in this specific scenario, give me 1 second to check my notes here. So yeah, the records, 22 million records, 140 columns, and we're just right now we're just trying to run the query. Like we're just running a query against the external database, and the link is already like working. We've already verified that we can connect to the table, but when we're trying to just run the query, like we're not even in a flow yet. We're just trying to pull the table. It's just not running.
What's the error? Is there an error message or something?
No, it's just spinning.
So naturally that would happen because due to the size amount of records that you have. So the best way to test that out, what I would do is if you have connected to that database externally, you can run, you can, Robert, can you close this and go and open up a report real quick for me? So in the report designer, because naturally if you're trying to debug and then fetch a lot of records, it's going to loop in the system because you're loading a ton of records into it. What I would recommend doing is you can go into the report designer, click on data sources for me, and you could do the database integrations right there. It's the third option on the bottom. And then if we've connected an integration, you can then display all that data in a report and then show it that way because you can report over external integrations. So that's what I would do so you can see all of the data that's inside there. Trying to fetch it and display it in the debugger, it will work, but it will take a long time due to the size of that table.
So show it in the report designer instead. Is what you're
Yeah,
saying?
if you're trying to just view the data, I'm not sure where if you're just trying to transfer it to another, like what's the
So
let me back up. What's the end state that you're trying to get to?
the end state is they were trying to push it from one database system to another.
What's the other database system?
Snowflake.
Snowflake? Okay.
Yes.
So you got
And
the
our
Snowflake integration. Okay.
We have we're pulling from I want to say a SQL Server database and pushing to a Snowflake environment.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, then I would run it in batches then. Like maybe do like 500,000, then the next 500,000, and then do it that way. Because that will be a better performance experience and make sure that you get everything to go through. If you do it all at once, it will take a really long time due to the size of record rows that we have.
Okay, so so if we want to just view the data, then we should run it inside of Report Designer using what was it?
In the report designer was just to view the data. That won't help in regard to like transferring that information. But what I would do then is you can use a run. Go to the flow designer, Robert. Go to flow. You could also use the run flows for list step to batch queue certain amounts of it and just do for every record in it, you can run it on different threads, which will allow the saving to go a little bit faster when you're trying to save large amounts of data.
Oh, you can run on the threads?
Yeah, you can run on different threads. So if you can go to, you can ignore the input type, but that's not relevant for this, Robert. Just click on it. If you go to run behavior.
And now you do host our environment, so it should
Perfect. Yeah. So you can do
fast.
thread. Yeah, exactly. So you can use thread job async, and when you click on that, you can allow thread counts and the queue name. So you can, like I said, batch process the saving of the records into Snowflake. Another thing that I'd probably do if we host you guys, I'd probably recommend talking with our ops team and talking with the Snowflake system. I'm not sure if we host that for you guys, but when we're dealing with large data like that, there may be a better way to just export that data and then import it into Snowflake, and then you have it that way instead of trying to do a flow to do it. A flow can do that, but if you have like a database, a database manager or someone who's familiar with databases, there might be a better way to import and transition all that data into Snowflake.
I mean, we have lots of ways to do it. We're just trying to see if we can do it in decisions, mostly just for a use case to kind of also show that how useful decisions is as well, I guess.
Gotcha. It can, like I said, it can do that. Okay. I was curious if this was a use case or just a one-time thing. If it's a one-time, that's what I was suggesting. Just export the data, import it in there. But if you do need to process large swaths of data, we would utilize the run flows for list, and then save it that way and run it on different threads.
Run flows for list. Okay.
This is also new with I want to say 9. If you have 9, this is a new 9 step.
Oh, I'm so glad you said that because we don't have 9. We're upgrading like in the next week or 2.
Yeah, this one exists.
Well, I think you might still have that one. That's not the one that's new is the one that allows you to run the batch processes for different clustered environments.
Oh,
So if
okay.
I had 100,000 records, I can say my cluster 1 node can run that one. My cluster 2 node will run another one, and you could distribute that work across the nodes. But I think you have batch processing in V8 as well. So
nice.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Perfect. Well, I will take this information and let you know how it goes.
Okay,
Sounds
awesome.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, no
Of course.
problem. And Manal, I sent you a message. What I think is just because we did get another question in the chat. And I just want to be take the time to make something nice. I will build out that, and I sent you a message, the radio validations and send an export to you. So two radio sections that create validations for selectable options. So depending on what you select in the top section, it'll give you options in the bottom section, and then messages associated with that child radio button section. So if I, in the child section, I select I select car, it'll give me, two options. And then I select one of those options, it'll give me a message saying, hey, we need a certain type of gas or whatever the message is. I can build that out. It's probably going to take a little longer than we have left on Lunch and Learn. And I want to make sure that you get, a good answer, but I can build that out for you on the moving forward here a little bit.
I appreciate it. And I try to explain it in the question and answer with the
Yeah.
button, but I don't know if I did a good job. Sorry.
No,
I'm
you
not
did
that
great.
great in explaining and typing.
Did my understanding of it work where it's like you have a radial section up here,
Hmm.
and then a radial section down here? The more I was thinking about it, we might have to populate this a little bit dynamically. I'll mess with it. But if I select this, some of these will no longer be there. And then once I select this, we'll have a pop-up saying a message.
Hmm.
Okay.
Pretty much. So if you choose, for example, first two is like car and truck, right? If
Okay.
you choose car, then only the Mercedes and BMW will show up because those are cars. But if you choose truck, then 18-wheeler and uh, what else is truck? Like 18-wheeler will show up.
Yeah.
It's something in that line. I just have another rail data, so I'm just doing this as an example. And then if anything has a validation, then the submit but the next button doesn't show up because they cannot go to the next form since it's an error. Yeah, it's kind of confusing. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. I don't think it's all that confusing. So again, if you select car, you'll get Mercedes and BMW. And then if I select truck, I'm getting 18-wheeler in my bottom section, all radio buttons still.
Mhm. Yeah, they're all radio button. Car, truck, Mercedes, BMW, all are radio button.
And you don't want the done button to show up at all if there's any validations.
Yes, because they should not be going to
Yeah.
the next form.
And we could put validations on that are fatal so that like when they do it, it'll send them a
Mhm.
message. It'll say like, hey, this can't be whatever. And then they can't, if they try and click the done button, it'll kind of flash and say like, hey, this is the
Mhm.
problem. Or do you really want the done button fully hidden?
Not hidden, just disabled or
Yeah.
hidden, either or.
Yeah, I got you on that for sure.
Yeah, I tried to build it with the truth table and he gave me a really hard time. So I was like, I need to go to decisions, but
Yeah.
their help is appreciated. But for example, it's like if they choose truck and the truck doesn't have, they will just be able to choose 18-wheeler and they'll fill out the form for truck then. That's
Yeah.
pretty much simple. Kind of
Yeah,
what
truth tables take a little time to set up on the infrastructure, but just the
Mhm.
scalability of it is kind of hard to argue with.
Mhm.
You could build a much more like a parsed down process with pop-ups and individual validations and multiple active form flows. But setting up one truth table is really going to set you up for success just because if you say
Mhm.
hypothetically down the road you wanted to add, a Nissan or you wanted to add a
Mhm.
new truck or you wanted to add change the message or whatever it is, like having it on a truth table and not having to kind of like rebuild 25% of your project with its own path and its own form
Mhm.
flow where you can just add that data to a truth table. That's probably what I'll end up working it through. So
Yeah, and if it is any way like you have any active form flows, I don't know, somehow I just always have a bad luck with truth tables. If there's
yeah.
any way to do that with active form flow, that would be great too, or either or.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely can. Like I said, I know we're kind of running
Hmm.
low on time here, and I don't know if I'll be able to get this done in 20 minutes, but
Yeah, no
yeah,
worries.
essentially, yeah, with
Hmm.
with these active form flows, you definitely can run a truth table with an output. So
Hmm.
um, like if I go in here, let's do a quick one. Truth table. We're just gonna have this run at startup. Or no,
Hmm.
we'll just have it run at startup just so I can show you. I mean, obviously I'm kind of like partially built out here, which I don't think is all that helpful in the grand scheme of things, but pick a create truth
Oh,
table.
you could do that way. Okay, got you.
Yeah. And you can just create a new one and we'll call this like
Hmm.
um active form flow output data truth table. Something like that. On here, you're going to want to set up some input data. So for this particular use, I'm going to say, I'm just going to call this value. I'm just making a named variable. Like I could
Hmm.
call this whatever.
Sorry to interrupt, Robert. Can
Yeah.
we pause here and answer the integration question real quick? That came from Alexander.
Where does, maybe I'm on the wrong one.
In the report viewer, how did you connect to the external database? Because I think, and I wanted to ask clarification on Alexander. Are you talking about how to just report on it in the report designer, or how to create an external integration?
Okay, so we're actually trying to connect to it, but it keeps timing out because it's so big. So we can't actually get to the point where we have it saved.
Oh, interesting. Can you go to the integration connections, Robert, real quick? Because what that typically means is, I wonder if we can verify the credentials for from that. Because it shouldn't take too long, regardless of the size of it. I don't think it should take too long. So if you go to integration, manage integrations.
And we are on 8 though. So I don't know if that holds matters.
You could do it over here on a
Yeah, it'd be
system
the
level.
system way. So you
Say
go to
for your
databases.
system
Yeah.
integration databases.
And then create a connection.
Yep.
And then was it SQL? Yeah, I would verify. Yeah, if we can verify the credential, does it say like it connects, or you're trying to hit test and it doesn't work?
I think we'll try to hit test and it doesn't work.
Does it come back failed or whatever?
It times out.
It times out. If you don't, this may be something we have to rope support in, but the thing that I would verify is verify that the connection string is accurate. Because typically, sometimes if it times out, that means that the connection string or the username or password of that database is not correct. So that'll be something that just does a sanity check if we can verify that. But here's where you connect it, and then once you do that, you can select the table that you want.
Okay. And base integrations, and then do it there. Okay. And then after that, after we do this and run that, it should be available for us to reference inside of our report viewer, right?
Exactly. Well, once you create that connection, there's a second thing you have to do. Robert, could you demonstrate the table thing? So like, let's say, so Robert has Robert's other database right there, right? So what you do here is you right click, and then you would add a table, right? And then you pick the table that you want to integrate with, and this might take a little bit just because it's accessing the tables, and this may not be a valid one that we're testing with. But what would happen here is it would show you all the tables that you have. That's fine. So that means that our just connection settings is incorrect on our table. But what would happen is, let's see, go ahead and Robert, can I drive for a bit?
Yeah, of course.
And
Let me
also,
show
so you
you
make
what
that
this would look.
connection inside of database integration settings?
Yeah.
Okay.
So let me show you. So if I go into my over here, right? I go to settings, I go to integration, databases, and let's say I created the local connection, right? This is the default one that gets created when you install decisions. But then what you would do is after you go inside the local connection, then you have the option to add a table, a view, a procedure, a relationship, or a query, right? And so what you can do here is you can add a table, and then you will see all the tables to the left, or you won't see it this way. You would see it in a different way because of version 8 differences, but you'll have access to all the tables that you want to integrate with. You just select that table, and then you'll have a different menu here to allow you to define what the key is, what are the fields you want to carry over, and then all the steps that you want to be automatically generated when you integrate with that table. Once you do this table integration part, that's when you'll be able to utilize the steps inside of the flow designer to talk to that table, like these get all steps right here. So for example, yes, I do want to close this dialog. If I go into a really quick flow and I'll go to this notify me flow, since I created that database connection integration, let's kind of imagine it. What it would do is in my integration and then in my database, and then you'll have your local connection or your Snowflake or database connection here. When you grab it here, you'll get access to the different integrations that you've created. So in this case, I've created some project views integrations, and so I can access those steps here. But if you created your own local connection, you'll get that external connection and steps here once you go into integration and database. So that's kind
Okay.
of where it all kind of manifests itself.
Cool. So I need to get the connection first, and then I need to pull the actual table that I want to integrate with.
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
And then once you do that, then that will allow you to go to common, expand whichever connection that you want, and then you can report over that specific integration.
Okay, and could you show the database, like connecting it and setting it up with my user credentials one more time?
Yeah. So if I go to settings, we go to
Settings.
integrations and databases, and then create connection.
Can I have the? I'm sorry. Do you mind pasting the trail for this, please?
Oh yeah, definitely. The integration trail is. Let me find my chat here. Everyone, yep, it is system. Then you go to integrations, and then you go to database. That's where it's all at.
Okay. Database. Okay. And then for the table, is it along that same line?
Yeah. So once you create it, once you create the connection, then you'll go inside of it, and then you can, or in here, then you have to right click, and then you can add a table.
Okay.
I think there's a great document over this. Let me see. That covers this. I could be wrong. Database integration setup. The external database integration. And oh, boom, this is perfect. Yep. This walks you through all this. Different validation messages. Yeah, I'll put this one in the chat. This one really helps in case you
Perfect.
haven't used that.
Thank you.
And I think the shots here are in version 8, so it'll be more reflective of your environment. Awesome.
Oh, weird. Let me click this link. There it is. Awesome. I think that should be enough for me to move forward with this.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
My pleasure. All right, well, I believe it's pretty good. All right, so we'll go ahead and call it there unless there's any other questions that someone may have for the for us. Let me just make sure if I go to Q&A, make sure I haven't missed anything. We are good, thank you. Okay, good. We got to all these. Yep. So I'll go ahead and wrap it up today. Thank you so much for attending. Tomorrow we have no lunch and learn. That it will be Friday. So we'll reconvene on lunch and learns on. Well, I think I think next week is our submerse event. So we will still have. I believe we'll still have the lunch and learns go on. Let me see. Go to /training. And we go to events. So yeah, we got a submerged deep dive training 3-day boot camp next week. So please attend that. That's going to be really great. It will be really great to see you guys and interact with you. We'll still host the lunch and learn there. We probably not too many people will attend during that time because a lot of them will be live there. But we'll still host it just in case if you guys have questions and you weren't able to make that submerged deep dive training event. But if you can in future, we always encourage you guys, if you haven't done our online product training, and if you attend one of these submerse events and finish the foundation track from start to finish, that will count as you doing the online product training course. And you can move on then to the dev projects if you so choose to. So just wanted to talk about that. But thank you so much for your kind attention, and I'll see you guys next time.